one rule I would like to see changed is the medical forfeits. So I think that as fans and as coaches and as wrestlers, we want to see encourage guys to wrestle and not kind of shy away from matches and opportunities. Um, we don't want to. We talk about like how do we get these top guys not to duck other guys, and I think one way to do that is to stop the medical forfeits. So obviously, some guys do get hurt. If a guy snaps his ankle in the middle of a match, we're not gonna be like, oh, you got to keep going. But if you're someone that's using a medical forfeit to default out of a tournament, you should be penalized for that. So this past weekend at the CKLV in Las Vegas, there was six or so really high seeded wrestlers, a few All Americans, and at least one national finalist that was upset maybe earlier on or lost a match they didn't expect to lose, and rather than finishing the tournament, they kind of were like, "That's it, I'm medically forfeiting out." And one reason I don't like it as well is that you know there's no professional folk style. This is the highest level. And when you're coaching a youth team and you have your 6-year-old that you guys are watching NCAA's with, you don't want to be like, oh, if you ever lose, just pick up your ball and go home. One of the things we talk about is being, winning gracefully and losing gracefully. And I think guys that are like, oh, he's on the world team, he's a U.S. rep, he's a returning national finalist. Oh, he lost. Oh yeah, he just went home. Yeah, I think it's a bad message to send,
Yeah.
and I think that it also encourages guys to avoid opponents. Um, and so I would like to see them penalized, maybe not necessarily losing and counting that as a loss, but having it affect their seeding criteria for things like their conference championship and nationals. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I'm always for anything that is promoting more competition. You hate to see guys that like that they're not hurt because especially like they lose their match, then they wrestle their next match, but then and they win it, and then they just choose not to wrestle the next one for whatever reason. Like, and I'm done for the day. Like it's not the right thing to do. I don't think. I feel like you're there to compete. You were there to win the tournament. Okay, that didn't go according to plan. You should still see the tournament and out. If someone else beats you, so be it. Or you win all the way through and you take third. Like it shouldn't work out otherwise. And if it should negatively impact them in some way, would you want to see it that like if you were in the semis, you lost, and then medical forfeit 2 in a row to take sixth, like would that count double negative or is that just single negative?
So I think that having one negative is fine. I wouldn't fault a guy for doing it twice.
Okay.
But I think that it is annoying from a team race that you could say like, oh, I made it to six, made it to the semis, and I could default out of the tournament and still, earn team points potentially. I wouldn't say, hey, like, I wouldn't DQ them from the event, but I would say that they're now dinged, maybe doubly, if it's, for a conference seeding. But I wouldn't give them two losses.
I think it's maybe tough logistically to kind of enforce this. Be like, oh, how do you know? Like, how do you differentiate? Like, oh yeah, like my shoulder's busted. I can't wrestle.
I mean, yeah, the only way you
compared to like, oh no, like
I'm hurt. Yeah,
I'm hurt. Hey, wink, wink.
The only way to actually differentiate that would be a medical loss is a medical loss, and it's a loss. Like you lost the match.
And I think that having maybe that like more extreme where it's an actual loss would promote guys not to do it. And
because like if you legitimately got hurt in the quarterfinals and then you had to lose again, maybe it only counts as one loss in an event. Like you could, but because then it would legitimately count. But then I mean you might run into those guys that I'm hurt, wink wink, and take the loss. But I mean you're taking a loss by doing that.
I think there's a difference between getting hurt mid-match and then like not starting the match and getting hurt. So
that's
like
true.
if you don't even start the match, does that count as a loss?
Yes, that should be a loss in my opinion. If you
Really?
Yeah, I think that would
so
be.
if I
Yeah.
beat someone in the quarters and then I lose in the semis, and then in my first match in the semis, or no, I let's take it back. I lose in the quarters. I have to win one more match to get top eight, and I beat that guy 12-0, and then I medically forfeit the rest of the tournament. That should count as a loss because clearly
Yeah.
I was okay to wrestle. But if I in the middle of a match I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just tore my ACL, that shouldn't impact, and that should
Yeah,
not be a
yeah,
loss.
yeah.
I
If
mean,
you injury default out of a
yes,
match, that shouldn't count as a loss. It could count as a win for the other guy, but it shouldn't
yeah,
count as a negatively against you. Yeah.
and
See, I'm
I
on the other. I think I disagree. I think if you lose by injury, you lose. You can't continue. You lose. You forfeit.
yeah.
Whereas if you don't even step on, there was no match to be won necessarily. So the question is, if they're getting losses, are you saying that you get awarded a win for a med forfeit win?
Yeah.
I mean, well,
Right.
guys already are doing. They're already guys are already getting med forfeit wins.
Yeah, they currently are.
So
That counts as a win for like seeding criteria.
I think so.
I think
I
that's
know
how
that
that works.
it
Yeah.
counts. It counts as for advancement. So
Yeah.
I don't. If a guy, I mean, if a guy wins a tournament based on a med forfeit, I don't know if they go back and they say, well, he didn't technically win. I can see Jack's point with it too, though. So if this is the way I see it, a guy that medically forfeits before the match maybe gets dinged twice. A guy that has to stop the match and medically forfeits gets dinged once. So he does lose,
Okay.
but he at least went out there, tried to wrestle the match. I mean, we saw it last year NCAA's several times. I mean, a lot of guys, Jaden Ironman, torn ACL, Michael Kemmer, blown out shoulder, Yanni 2 years prior, torn ACL, Spencer Lee ACLs, and some of them tried to soldier through the matches. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I don't fault Jaden Ironman, for example, for trying to wrestle last year at NCAA's. It was his last hurrah. I wouldn't ding him for that more than needed. But if you had a healthy guy that said, oh, I lost
I ain't
as the
getting
one.
first.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm going to call him out. I think Gable Stevenson, great wrestler, might have a little bit of an ego. If he
Yeah.
got knocked off in the round of 16 somehow, I have a feeling he would medically forfeit the rest of the tournament because he says, what am I doing here?
Oh, you
And
don't
at
think
that
he would
point,
try to go get third?
not at this point in his career. His freshman
Yeah.
year for sure, but he got knocked off in the semis as
Yeah.
a freshman. It wasn't like he was lost in round one. If returning gold medalist, two-time national champion Gable Stevenson lost to a guy that 33rd
33,
seed,
yeah.
yeah, somehow lost to him. I don't know if he would want to wrestle back,
Yeah.
especially considering all that he's already accomplished as a
Maybe for
wrestler.
the team race, but yeah, maybe
Yeah,
not
but again,
individually.
like, yeah, and so at that point, I would say we fault that guy twice
Yeah.
because that's bunk.
Well,
I was gonna say something else, but
let's put it to a vote. All in favor for what was it? All in favor for getting rid
some-
of medical for or sorry. All in
Different
favor
dinging.
for
penalizing medical forfeits.
all in
Losses.
favor for penalizing medical forfeits, counting it as a loss. Put your thumb up. I think I'm actually going to put down for this one because I don't know if it should count as a loss on their permanent record because like if you go back in their
Wrestle stat.
history and you see like, oh, I was 101, what was my only loss? It was a med forfeit loss. Like I think that's kind of harsh. Maybe a different type of penalty. I'm in
I
agreement
mean,
on
you'd
some
be
sort
creating a whole nother category of loss then.
yeah, it's a different category of loss. And then there's the conversation of having med forfeit wins. Like, oh, I had 100 wins, but 10 of them were med forfeit wins.
Well, that's kind of like just a forfeit win. Like you go in a dual meet,
think-
you get a win via forfeit. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
Every other sport, part of it, is it's not about being the best; it's about being the best at that day.
yeah,
Yeah.
You wouldn't fault a boxer that had the flu. I mean, Michael Jordan talks about his famous flu game where he was sick. He could have easily not played, but he had the best game of his career. If you said, oh, Super Bowl champion Tom Brady, he twisted his ankle, he can't play in the Super Bowl. You know darn well he's playing in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Same thing for MMA. You wouldn't be like, well, he can't, mid-match. He goes, well, we're calling the match early because he broke his leg. That counts as a loss still.
Yeah.
So
I
I think
I
that
could see it maybe going for like maybe like it takes away a team point or something, but a
Okay.
loss on their record for not even starting the match. I don't know that. I'm not quite convinced.
well, we'll work on it.
Thanks for watching. We are Cactus Wrestling, and we'll see you next time on our next video.